Oasis. Next month, we have gardening under lights. So if you'd like to learn about how to grow houseplants under grow lights, talk all about that. November, we'll get into more houseplant care and dealing with pests and disease because just because your plants are in the house doesn't mean they're not going to be attacked by insects or disease. So we'll talk all about that. And then December, one of my favorite topics, houseplants for the holidays. So we're going to have a lot of fun and I hope to see you at those future sessions. Okay, so in talking about the 10 best houseplants for most homes, I'm starting with the philodendron. This is one of my favorite plants ever, and you'll probably hear me say this about a lot of different plants that we're going to talk about. But I love it because I just think it's so graceful. I love a plant that trails. I love when you can put a plant on a shelf or a table and it just kind of delicately goes around a different surface. So it's got a vining habit, as you can see. The one in the top right is called Philodendron Brazil, Brasil. It's got that lime green chartreuse in the center. It's just very exotic looking and delicate. It is mildly toxic when ingested. It's adaptable and tolerant of varying conditions. So I have this plant all over my house. Now I wouldn't put it in, a south-facing window, but pretty much everywhere else. I mean, in certain light, like medium to bright and direct or dappled light, it's going to really thrive. If you move it to low light, it's still going to be alive. It's tolerant. It's still going to look good. It just may not be as lush and lustrous as it would be if you moved it to that really ideal light. Water when it's dry or almost dry, it enjoys humidity. Like I said, the reason that I chose these plants is because I've grown them for years and my experience is if you miss a watering with this one, it's very forgiving. It's not going to up and die or wilt or wither just, in a second. And we're going to get into some more philodendrons as we go. These are very popular plants in the rare and collectible world as well. Another one, which I think everyone should have, a pothos, because everyone can grow a pothos. If you think that you can't, yes, hello, can you not hear? No, I'm sorry. Okay. If you think you can't grow a house plant, a pothos is definitely for you. Is that good? Okay, yeah. So these can get up to 10 feet or longer, and they're also
I don't
really.
know if that, it doesn't seem to be turning it up all that here. Is it gonna
No,
be
it's just
here?
an amplifier.
Yeah.
So, and we have too many things running and we don't have the correct wireless
Would you like
mic.
to sit here?
Does
No,
it-
I'm just saying, when you do that dial, it's not
Does it really
really
make a
improving
difference?
anything. No, I didn't know if it was coming through the.
I don't want to squeak and make it.
Maybe the fan.
I can't put that.
Hello, welcome. Okay,
That's
Can you
better.
project?
I will try to project. Yes,
Here we go.
I get excited talking about plants, and then I just
Yeah, if you aim it this way,
Mhm.
it's coming out of that little speaker thing, right?
yeah. Is that better?
That works.
Okay, let me do that then. Okay. All right, so back to pothos. And sorry, as I told you guys, we're going to have a few little kinks to work out, but we'll go right along. So pothos, if you think that you can't grow a house plant, I've got news for you. You need a pothos. I mean, again, another plant that I have everywhere. We have them all over our office as well. And these things don't want to die. They're very forgiving. They, medium to bright, indirect, or dappled light is a light suggestion that you might hear for many, many different houseplants. They're graceful because they are long and they vine, and that really appeals to me. They tolerate low light. A lot of plants, when I say they're low light tolerable, it means they're not going to die if you put them in low light. They may not thrive as much as they would if they had some light. But this is one too, where if you put this out on a shady patio in the summertime, it is going to go crazy. These tropical plants love the outdoors. They're understory plants, many of them that are used to growing in the understory of the rainforest or the jungle. And when you put them outside in our really humid Atlanta weather, in a shady spot where they're getting all that humidity and you're squirting them with the hose or they're getting rain, they will just explode for you. So they're very, very rewarding plants to grow. And like I say, water when almost dry to dry. If you miss a couple days, this thing is not going to make you pay for it. Okay, ficus. Ficus is what I consider an unsung hero of these houseplants because it grows so fast, so quickly. It's so tall. It's a great statement plant and it comes in so many nice varieties. Like you can see here, I've got the fiddle leaf fig highlighted down below in the middle. It's a very elegant hot plant. You see it in a lot of magazine shoots and people use it to stage their homes. Very, very graceful. And then you have what is more commonly called just a rubber tree ficus at the top. That's the burgundy. I have that as well. I'm telling you, you put it out on your shaded patio in the summertime and the thing just, it'll outgrow you. Does really, really well. Low light tolerable. So when you bring this plant inside for the winter and for the fall, it's going to do just fine. It's not going to get, wimpy on you or become a drama queen. It's really, really forgiving. It's toxic when ingested. I'm sure you probably experience with these plants if you tear their leaves, they've got that sap that comes out that can irritate your skin. But again, I personally have 3 cats at home, so I kind of know what pets are drawn to. This is one that they really don't care much about. Now, like the vining plants, like the philodendron and pothos, they might like those. A solution for that is just to put it up high where they can't reach it. Torment them by putting it up so high that they're swatting and they're looking and they just can't get to it. So again, water this one when it's almost dry to dry. It loves humidity like most of these plants. It's good to plant it in a well-draining, chunky mix with lots of orchid bark. That's something that people don't necessarily think about sometimes when they're planting these. Also the ficus, because it's very top heavy and it goes very tall, mixing in some sand to stabilize a plant goes a long way. I've got that ficus, fiddle leaf ficus on my patio. I've got 2 of them. And it grows so fast, but it falls over very quickly. And so I had to put something heavy in there, like some sand, to kind of keep it from blowing away. But it's a wonderful plant, wonderful statement plant, very forgiving. Here we have the Chinese evergreen, and I think these are so lovely because they look like someone has just painted this intricate painting on the leaves. You have them in a lot of different varieties, like up here at the top, it's green and like a silver color. Down below, it's red and pink. We have some other here in the conference room that you can look at too, but you get a lot of different variety. They become big, low to moderate light. They can tolerate short periods of bright indirect light. Mine at home, I have in an east facing window, so they get morning sun, a lot of that, and they love that. And then it dissipates during the day, and they love that just barely amount of of direct light. Lightly moisten the soil, do not overwater, but do not let it sit dry for long periods. The funny thing about plants is, people will call or email and ask questions about their plants of what's causing a problem, what's going wrong. And it always feels a little funny to say, well, you could be overwatering it, but it could be not enough water. And it could be, too dry or not enough light, too much light, not enough light. You really have to find that delicate balance, but don't let that intimidate you. The reason I chose these plants is because in the meantime, when you're trying to figure out how best to grow these and where they might go in your house, they're not going to up and die on you. They're going to do really well. Chinese money plant. This is a very hot plant. That's the one that's also commonly called a UFO plant. It's in the middle of the screen. And at the top, that's a pilea. They're both in the pilea family. And these are just wonderful plants. The one in the top right's also often called an aluminum plant. They're very hardy. They don't want to die. They like bright indirect light. So if there's some artificial light in your house or you just have a place near a window, they will love that. Fertilizing them every month during the growing season with some diluted fertilizer is recommended. And I have highlighted here, non-toxic to humans and animals. I will say my cats do like this plant. I always tell them I'm really glad that it's not going to hurt them, but I still don't want it torn up. Please leave it alone. And in talking about your pets and plants, I know some of you have pets and you're concerned about your pets getting into your plants. I have a couple of suggestions on how to keep them out. And it's kind of appropriate that we're doing this at this time of year because you probably have noticed that the cinnamon scented pine cones are in the stores now. Cats hate the cinnamon scented pine cones. Like they hate the cinnamon, they hate citrus. So what I do when I bring my plants in for the fall and winter, I will put those cones in on my plants and they stay out of it. They don't like the way it feels in their paws. They don't like the odor. So it's an easy, inexpensive way to keep them out. Okay, and here's Betonia, the nerve plant. These are wonderful in terrariums and just in a regular sized pot. They love indirect bright light. Lower light, like it says, will cause the plant to lose some of its vibrancy here, but that doesn't mean that it's going to die or brown on you. It's just maybe not like as striking. Water lightly and often when the top of the soil feels dry. And that's so true. When I water this, I just give it a little bit, but I water it pretty frequently. I'll put my finger in the top of the soil. If it feels like it's getting dry, I might just dump some water from my cup in there and it's happy. Even when a plant like this, or when this particular plant hasn't been watered for a couple of days and it may just droop and wilt and you think, oh my gosh, I killed my plant. It's just being dramatic on you. You give it some water and by the afternoon it's standing back up. So definitely recommend this. Non-toxic and pet friendly. Like I said, it will not harm your pets. They may want to nibble on it, but like I said, you can try the citrus sprays and the cinnamon scented pine cones, or just putting it out of their reach. Okay, Hoya. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the Hoya or have heard about really the craze with Hoya plants these days. Even though I consider it one of the 10 best houseplants for most homes, it's really taken off in the collector world too, because there are so many different varieties and these blooms are amazing. I mean, you're not going to find that I'm aware of a house plant with this type of bloom that's so striking and so interesting on another plant. And many of them are fragrant when they bloom like that. So when they first come out, they're those clusters of little waxy pre-petals, I refer to them. And when they open up, as you can see on the left, and the one that's like climbing on the top, they're just beautiful clusters of blooms. You can tie them up on a stake. You can train them to grow around an archway or anywhere in your home that you want to kind of highlight and frame. They love warmth and humidity, of course, like most of these plants. They don't love winter and dry or death. They're non-toxic. They must be mature enough to flower. So keep that in mind. If you get a Hoya and it's not flowering for a while, it may not be because you're not caring for it properly. It may just not be mature enough. And sometimes you can ask, wherever you're buying it, like, what's your source? How old are these Hoyas? If you see one that's already got buds on it or blooms, you're good. If it doesn't have that, you might inquire if that's important to you.
Are they a spring blooming or do they bloom in the fall or do they bloom when they feel it?
So we have a question from one of our guests here in the conference room, and she was asking if they bloom in the spring or the fall. We have them in our office upstairs. They bloom year round. As long as they're getting the light that they want and we give them some fertilizer, they will continually bloom, and it's very rewarding. As you can see, the one at the top, it's maybe my little icon's kind of cutting it out, but it's shaped like a heart. They're very popular around the time of Valentine's Day as gifts. And there are other variegated ones like in the bottom right that have white and some have crimson. You can really go crazy with the varieties on these. And some of the really rare looking, striking ones can fetch a hefty price. If you ever look on, say, Instagram or TikTok at different plants, you're just curious and you just kind of want to see what people are doing, type in Hoya head. They call themselves Hoya heads. They're Hoya addicts. They love everything Hoya. They love the Hoya blooms, and a lot of people will refer to themselves as a Hoya head. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm sure everybody in here knows about a snake plant, and it kind of pained me a little bit to put the Dracaena trifasciata because it used to always be Sansevieria. If you're a plant nerd like myself, that might bother you. If you're just a normal person, you probably don't care. But anyway, it's still the same plant, snake plant. Up in the top, that's a whale fin. It's so interesting because it's similar to like a whale fin, just one big leaf. In the bottom, that's a moonshine variety. And over to the far right, that's a more common variety that you see around. They do grow up to 4 feet tall and upright. They are mildly toxic. My pets have never really been interested in my snake plants, but I can't attest to what your pets would be interested in. These are amazing because they thrive on neglect. And when I say thrive on neglect, I wouldn't say ignore them, leave them alone, don't care for them, but I'm saying they really do thrive on neglect. We were just, many of us in our office were on a tour yesterday at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens in Gainesville. And we had the honor of being toured around by a guy who's an international plant explorer. And I bring that up because he said one of the benefits and one of the most important parts of getting to go seek out these plants in their homeland, like to go to Vietnam or to go to these different countries and find them in situ where they grow, is they learn so much about how the plant can grow when they bring it back to the US. If you just have somebody from another country sending you plants, you really have to acquaint yourself with, how it's going to grow and what it's like. But when you go and you see these plants where they grow, you know about what some of their preferences are. And I say all that to say, think about where these things grow and where they come from. And it's not just the snake plant, but any house plant. Most of these things are tropical. Some of them come from desert settings. When you consider where they originate from, you can kind of get a clue about how you should take care of them in your home. So hopefully that roundabout explanation got you there. So low to bright indirect light, and these will bloom. They bloom beautifully. And I recommend, if you want yours to bloom, put it outside in the spring and summertime. And something that I want to point out about moving your plants outside, not everybody wants to do this. Some people say, I don't want to mess with it. It's too much hassle. I don't want the bugs, whatever. But if you do, your plants will thank you for it. And number two, you always want to harden the plant off. Now, what does that mean? If you're taking a plant that's been in your house, used to just whatever light conditions are in your home, say, through the filtered window with a sunscreen or just the low light of winter, you don't want to just whop it right out there in the south side of your house and expect it to thrive. Because even though my snake plants love the south side of my house, it's a gradual process of moving them out there. So they start on my shady patio for a few days. Then I move them a little closer. And it takes about a week or so before I'm willing to put them in their ideal location. It really is like preventing them from getting shocked or sunburned. It's really, when you think about it, just kind of common sense. Just like us, if it's at the middle of the winter and we go on vacation to a tropical island, the sun might really kind of shock us and shock our skin. So keep the same thing in mind with your tropical houseplants. And like I said, the blooms are wonderful. African violets. This is one of my houseplants that kind of got me started with houseplants because my mom grew these and she was kind of obsessed with them. I remember her, she would bring them home from the grocery store all the time because this is one of the common houseplants that they sold at the grocery store. You could get like at the little gifty shop or buy, I don't know, where they sell the cakes and everything. And there's so many different varieties. And it's so much fun having a blooming plant, not just a green plant, but a blooming plant in the house. And she'd bring those home, and my dad even built her shelves above our kitchen sink. And so she just had them lined up. And I won't tell you about the time when our cats were chasing each other and jumped up and knocked them all down. That was not a pretty scene, but otherwise they were wonderful, wonderful houseplants. So if you would like to have something blooming, if you want that pick me up when it's, dull and gray outside, these are really not as fussy as some people may think they are. You don't want to get the leaves wet. That's easy. They're fuzzy. Kind of when you feel a fuzzy leaf, it's kind of giving you an indication of the fact that it doesn't want water on its leaves. But if you do accidentally get some water on the leaves when you water, just dry it off. It's not going to immediately die. They do like fertilizer. So if you do grow these and you want them to flower, you will need to give them fertilizer. If you don't give them fertilizer, they will still stay green. They'll still be leafy. They'll still be pretty, but they may not put those blooms out. So they need that food to put out the blooms. And you can buy African violet fertilizer. You can just get a regular 10-10-10. When it comes to fertilizers for any of these plants, I always say, read the label. I'm not going to give you a blanket, oh, give this one tablespoon of, every 2 weeks. It depends on the concentration of the fertilizer that you're buying. It really does. One size does not fit all. So and don't overthink it or overcomplicate it. Just read the label and you should be good. And like I said, not toxic to pets. It was a little toxic to my pets when they got in trouble for jumping and knocking those shelves down, but eating it, no problem. Okay, Dracaena, and some people call these Dracaena. I'm kind of from the old school Dracaena, but Dracaena. And these, like at the bottom, you'll see a lot of times we call that the corn plant, the Janet Craig, and they come in many different forms. They tolerate well the low light conditions. They don't need a lot of water. It's one of the NASA rated plants for being excellent at removing toxins from the air. And something that I want to point out about that, one of the great things, there are many benefits to having houseplants in your home. One of them is cleaning the air. But you do need to keep in mind that if you want that benefit, you need to keep your plant clean. So sometimes, just like anything in your house, they'll get coated and covered in dust. These plants love when you put them in the shower and give them a light shower and rinse and get the dust off. And they just love, it's like simulating a rain environment. leave them in there to dry a little bit so they're not dripping. That'll really maximize the availability of the plants, or the plant's ability to remove toxins, is if you get the dust, the thick coating of dust that's on there off. And it just is a wonderful way to water it and give it that humid environment in the shower for a while. So likes humidity, as I said, well draining, slightly acidic soil, toxic when ingested. Trying to think, I don't recall my pets messing with this one, but you'll have to find your own experiment for yourself. Okay, so the light is the most important factor affecting your house plants. So definitely choose the plant's location wisely. I can't emphasize that enough. More plants die from being overwatered than they do from being underwatered, but the same goes for the light. If it doesn't have the right light, it can really just mean the end for your plants. So the ones I mentioned, the 10 plants I mentioned, do really well in a variety of spots around your home. They're very well adaptable to many different places. North facing windows, know where your windows face in your house. So you probably have an idea of, which part of your house gets the south facing sun, which is the most boiling hot place. And that's for most houseplants, you don't want them in that south facing window. That's great for your cacti and succulents, but all these tropicals that typically reside in the understory, they don't want that and they will burn up. West facing windows receive bright indirect light. East facing windows, my plants do great in that kind of light. North facing windows, I don't really utilize for plants. I think I may have a couple of ferns that do okay in north facing, but you really probably will focus on the east and west facing windows. And artificial light, like if depending on the light in your home, if you were maybe getting plants for your office at work, really, really beneficial to the plants is these artificial lights that we have overhead. The plants in my office do phenomenally because of that light. So just if you figure out the light for your plants that you need, you've got half the battle won right there. Okay, so potting mix and growing media. Now you want to make sure that it's something that's labeled for indoor plants and containers. I've listed a couple here that I have used myself. You'll probably find your own favorite brand. I wouldn't say to go just with Miracle Grow because it's a popular brand, but really kind of do your research and make sure it's something that you like, that you buy it from a reputable source. Some soils tend to become infested with fungus gnats or other things. You want to make sure that when you open it up, that you get that nice, fresh, crumbly feel. The new Miracle Grow Tropical Potting Mix is one that I've been really impressed with. I find it a little expensive for the amount that you get in the bag, but that's, your own personal preference. Fox Farm's another one that I've used with great success. A little expensive, but I feel like my plants do well with it. At the top, I've got the leca balls, and you may or may not have seen those. They're very popular these days with a lot of houseplants enthusiasts because people who don't want to even mess with soil, they use the leca. Stands for lightweight expanded clay aggregate. It's made from a pre-treated clay that they fire in a kiln at a high temperature. They like it because it's less messy. It does tend to keep pests away, requires less storage, so you don't have to, store bags and bags and bags of soil. You can just have these leca balls, you can reuse them. I find it to be a little trickier on water because they're not going to hold water in the same way. So it's up to you. And some plants, I would say, lean more to that type of growing media than others. But really make sure when you go to the store or the nursery that you're getting something that says is labeled for indoor plants. Don't think that you can use your soil that you use outside for your vegetable garden. That's not going to work. If it says for raised bed gardening, even for annuals, no, that's not going to work either. Also, be careful about recycling your soil. Not to say that you can't recycle your soil, because you can. But if you had some disease or pest problems with the plant that you had potted in that soil, you want to just get rid of it, because it's very likely that even if you can't see it at the moment, something in there is being harbored. It's as we say sometimes, overwintered. It just might be living in there waiting for its next opportunity to strike your plant. So it's better just to get rid of it. Yes.
So a Christmas cactus plant
Mhm.
you would put in the tropical potting mix?
Well, a Christmas cactus. So we had a guest ask about if a Christmas cactus would go in the tropical potting mix. And honestly, those tend to be more succulent-like. I probably would use a succulent potting mix for those. Yeah. So it really depends. A lot of the tropical houseplants that you see, like even when you look at what I have in the room, some of these are succulents or cacti. You kind of want to taper it to that. And sometimes it requires mixing your own mix. You might find that they do better with a little of this and a little of that. That's something that you kind of just an instinct or a knowledge, rather, I should say, not an instinct, but a knowledge you gain over time working with the plants. But yes, always be aware of what they need to grow in, because if you're putting a plant that doesn't like to stay wet in one of those heavy, thick soils that stays really wet, then you're basically spelling disaster for your plant. If it doesn't kill it, you're at least going to get an infestation of some sort of pest, like a fungus gnat, which you just don't want to deal with. Okay, so pots and plant vessels, these can be so fun. I want to say though, just you can find so many really cute and fun pots and plant vessels out there. Just keep in mind what's going to be ideal for the plant that you want to grow, for the depth of the root system. That little guy up there, he's so cute. I have a pot similar to him on my desk, but you wouldn't want to put something that has a deep root system in a little guy like that. He's good for like a succulent or a cactus maybe. So keep that in mind. Also the heaviness of the planter. Sometimes some of these big ceramic pots, they're so nice looking, but you have to think about the practicality of when you need to move it, or is it the type that's not going to freeze if you have it outside with a lot of water? Not that you would leave your houseplants outside in the freeze, but just these are things to think about. How easy are they to move around? How easy are they just to manipulate, and where you want to put them? So your plant may need to be repotted if it starts requiring more frequent watering. Or also a good way to tell is if you lift up that plant and you see roots coming out of the drainage hole, that's an indication that it's time to repot. And like I said, the material of your plant. So terracotta is really nice. Terracotta is a very classy and classic looking plant, but keep in mind those dry out very quickly. They're great for cactus and succulents or other plants that you will have your eye on. But say, if you have a begonia or something, some type of house plant that likes to stay wet, don't put it in a terracotta plant. You're just kind of setting yourself up for heartbreak there. Like I said, get to know your plants before you establish a watering schedule. So I've had people say, can I water all my houseplants once a week? Well, you could, but that's not really what I would recommend, because one size does not fit all. Just like if you were an outdoor gardener, you'll know that some things want more water than others. Some things need more attention than others. Some things have different sun requirements. Same with your houseplants. If you have plants that only want a little bit of water, and then you also have some that are completely saturated, I always say try to make it easier on yourself and group plants with similar watering needs together. I know for an aesthetic point of view or aesthetic perspective, I kind of like to just arrange my plants on how they look best around my house. And sometimes that means having succulents next to like a begonia that likes a lot of water. And that's really cute, but it also makes it a major pain on myself. Like when I want to collect my orchids and get them all watered and showered and fertilized, I have to go around and scrounge them up and then put them all back. And it's fine, I do it, but it's more work. So I would just say for you, if you want to make this easier on yourself and give your plants a better chance of you being attentive to them, try to group things together that have simple requirements. And also you'll be less likely to neglect your plants that way. You'll be less likely to say, I'm too tired to mess with all that. If it's all just right there, you can just get to it. And I think I pointed out earlier, more plants die due to overwatering than underwatering. So when in doubt, always give less water than you think. Like if you're unsure, give it a little less than you think it might need, because you can always add more water, but you can't take water out. Sure. The
I
question?
don't know if you're gonna get to this on the next slide, but about watering from the top or getting the pots that water from the bottom.
Okay, so we have a guest here that is asking about watering from the top versus watering in the bottom. And there are certain pots like the little wicks that will have you put the water reservoir in the bottom that wick water up. From my personal experience, I prefer to water from the top always. I know a lot of people though who love those wick and grow, those ones that will pull water up because they don't have to water, they don't have to have as much hands-on watering time. That's a definite benefit. If you don't want to have to worry about it drying out, if you're going on vacation, or if you just don't want to have to water your plants as often, I say go for it. From my own personal point of view, because I have so many plants, to water from the bottom really invites pests. I get a really bad fungus gnat issue. Any type of standing water I don't like to have, especially with my pets too. They'll want to come drink it, and it's just I don't want to deal with it. So it really kind of depends. Yes.
Yes, I was at one point watering, grounding all my plants at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them would die from overwatering, so I put a moisture meter,
Mm-hmm.
and that helps a lot.
Okay.
And before I water each plant, I check to see uh, how wet the soil is.
Right, with your
And
meter.
if it doesn't need water, if it shows that it's still not dry, then I'll move on to go to the next.
Okay. Yeah.
That
And
helps a lot.
yes, and for those of you virtually, we just had one of our guests point out using a moisture meter. A lot of people find those very helpful. If you're not always able to stick your finger in the soil, or you would like a little more informed decision, get a moisture meter. They're very inexpensive at like a Lowe's or Home Depot or online or really anywhere that sells plants, and that'll give you some help. Take the guesswork out. Okay, now maybe you or maybe not, you heard of the magical world of aeroids. And the reason I call it the magical world of aeroids is because if you happen to have ever gotten on social media out of curiosity and looked at a lot of the houseplant guru type people who collect and really curate their flowers, there are a lot of what they call aeroid addicts. So what's an aeroid? What are they talking about? Aeroids are arums and they're members of the Araceae family. They have unique flowers called an inflorescence that consists of the spadix and the spathe. So you might be thinking, what the heck is that? Most of you are familiar with a peace lily and the bloom that they get. That's what it's referring to. So things like your pothos, philodendrons, peace lily, monstera, when they do get a bloom, it will look like that. And those are members of the aeroid family. A lot of them have waxy roots and leaves that keep them from absorbing too much water. And really, I find this aeroid family, it's extremely popular. The more, variegated or rare varieties you find, the more expensive. But what's so cool about these is if you want a tropical look, aeroids are really the way to go. If you kind of group these in mass in your home, even if you just get 3 or 4 or 5 pothos or philodendron to line up and you have them next to each other and they're looking all glossy and green, it's an instant way to bring the tropical look to your house. So when you think tropics, think of aeroids, definitely. Okay, and then talking about pests, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we are going to have a Houseplant Academy session on dealing with houseplant pests later on, but just a few little things. We talk a lot about at Extension and with the university, IPM. You may or may not have heard of IPM. It stands for Integrated Pest Management. It's really a hierarchy of dealing with pests that starts from the least intensive mode to the most intensive mode at the bottom. I always think of it and I compare it to how you treat your health. So when you know cold and flu season is coming, you might start by washing your hands more, drinking more vitamin C, doing some of these mild interventions. Then when people around you are coughing and sneezing, you might turn it up a notch, and be a little more to yourself or eat a little healthier or, stay away from those sick people. But then at some point when you contract an illness and you get toward the bottom of that pyramid, you're going to have to go to the doctor, take medicine, get an antibiotic. So we take that same approach to plants because you don't want to just immediately hit it with poison or with the most intense intervention because it's usually not necessary. The most important thing you can do is to identify the pest that you have. A lot of people will see that they have a bug and they're like, I'm just going to go buy some bug spray. Well, that's not really the best thing to do because these different chemicals that you buy at the store, they're listed and rated for different types of insects. So it could be that the insect or pest that you're seeing is not one that this control will work for. So really make sure you identify that. If you can't identify it yourself, you can call us at Extension, email us, whatever, and we will help you. You're not on your own as far as that's concerned. Not everybody can tell what something is just based on one little look. Inspect your plant regularly for pests. very often when you find a pest, it doesn't mean that your plant's going to die immediately. It doesn't mean that, all hope is gone. It just means that you need to, intervene in some way, figure out what it is and what you need to do. A lot of the problems and plant and issues that happen with your plants can be due to just not good sanitation practices. So it's really important that you are good with using clean soil, not overwatering or leaving standing water and like a breeding ground for pests. Um, using clean tools so that if you do treat an infected plant, you're not transferring that over to another plant. Okay, and as I said, pets and plants. So UGA actually has a publication. If you go online and type UGA publication 1245, it's all about keep your pets safe around plants. And they talk about the different type of plant toxicities. So one of my cats did get sick from a plant one time, and it resulted in a very expensive emergency vet bill, which I'd rather not be reminded of. And it was during COVID of all times. So we had to go wait in the parking lot for like 2 hours and then to call us, and it was an ordeal. Um, you definitely want to, like I said, I have a few pets. Not all of them are interested in plants. You got to know your pet. If it's one that's going to mess with the plants in your house, you need to be more vigilant, obviously. And so I just kind of go over ones that are considered majorly toxic, could cause illness or death. Some that are minor toxicity, vomiting or diarrhea, and then some that have oxalates that can just cause swelling, difficulty breathing, upset stomach, and some just dermatitis, just a skin rash. It's not going to be something that makes them violently ill. But as I said, there are many pet-friendly plants out there, many of which we listed. And you can go to the ASPCA.com it has a comprehensive list. I think every single plant you can imagine is on that list. It talks about, what would happen. I don't want to scare you too much though, because really, honestly, you want to be aware and you want to be careful, but you want to know your pet and how likely they are to get into something. We were in the children's garden at the botanical gardens yesterday, and one of the plants that was there they told us is like possibly the most toxic plant on the planet to anyone. And somebody said, well, why is it in the children's garden? And it's a fair question, but it's honestly something that no one would probably ever think to put in their mouth. It's not appealing. So yeah, you have to take different things into consideration. Okay, so we're going to talk about some rare finds and collector plants. And at this point, Lisa's going to help me. I'm going to walk over and kind of look at some of these plants and show them to you. And Lisa, you direct me to my next step, what I need to do. Because the wonderful folks at Petal and Pond, which I think I mentioned in the beginning, if you're all familiar with Randy's Nursery, kind of down the street, they've changed their name to Petal and Pond. And we're very fortunate to have a partnership with them. And one of their employees, Jose Rodriguez, who handles their tropicals, brought all these over for us to use for this demonstration. And after we're done, you'll be able to come up here and take a look. And obviously, if you want to buy one, they're there. So what do you need me to do, Lisa? And just bear with us for a second here. Okay, so while we're figuring that out, let me talk a little bit about rare and collectible plants. So these have really become, I'm sure they've always been a thing, but they've really become a crazy craze, if you will, because of social media. People love to flaunt and show their fancy plants that they have. I probably do not, so go up to here to do that. And then
Dot, dot, dot.
dot, dot, dot. And then I'm going to say pin.
Well,
No?
stop sharing for a second,
Okay, hold on a second.
and then you can just pick back up.
Yeah, hold on. It's not letting me do that. Stop share.
Um,
Okay. Okay, so I'm
And then you can go up to mine,
mhm.
iPhone.
Where's Lisa's? Is this one? This one.
Good.
Oh, pin.
Good.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to walk over here and show you some of these plants. So we are so fortunate to have this partnership with Petal and Pond and to have them bring over some of these plants for us to look at. And some of these, I mentioned a lot of different plants in the presentation, 10 different plants rather, that are more common, that are not expensive. These are more on the expensive side. These are more of the rare collector, but they're so much fun to look at. This is a philodendron here, and you can see when I mentioned having the spadix in the bloom and the inflorescence that makes them an aroid. That's what this pink thing is right here. Big, beautiful plant. You put this out on your shady patio and you will be rewarded, trust me. We have the, you probably, maybe or maybe not have heard of the Thai constellation monstera, gorgeous plant. Fenestrations that everybody is really into these days, very sought after, lots of mottled leaves and variegation, just gorgeous. We have some succulents and cacti down here, and this is a Hoya. I was telling you how there's such a large variety of Hoyas, and look at that vine, it's so wild and fun looking. And you can train it to grow on anything in any shape that you want and get those magnificent blooms. So you definitely want to check out the Hoya family. Back here we have a fiddle leaf fig that's been very popular the past few years. You can probably see those leaves. This is a ficus, and I always say everybody should have a ficus. If you want a statement plant in your home, I mean, a ficus is the way to go. It's way too often overlooked in my opinion. It's a wonderful plant. Look at the variegation on this. This is a Chinese evergreen that I mentioned. We have a cactus that's adorable here. A little terrarium Betonia. I mentioned these earlier. They like water. They will wilt, but they won't die unless you just completely ignore them. And this thing you would think was very spiky, but it's very smooth. It's got yellow and white and green. It's just fun to look at. And, you know, I was talking about the benefits of having plants in your house and, you know, how you can. But,
Since I can't see it.
oh, you can't? What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, it's showing up
Oh, it
as,
says a lost video.
okay, user error.
Okay, all right.
Never mind.
Go to Lisa's phone. Okay, sorry. Okay, so here is a Chinese evergreen, and I told you they come in multiple different colors. This is pink. It's so cute and pretty. And I was talking about, you know, the benefits of having plants in your house and how they can remove toxins from the air, and that's very important. But also, as we live in more of a suburban, urban environment, and we're more disconnected from nature, there are many medical, scientific studies done showing how living with houseplants, just being surrounded by this natural greenery, has a major effect on anxiety. And a lot of us deal with anxiety, and we live a very fast-paced lifestyle. Everything's quick and instant. And being surrounded by greenery really can kind of calm you down. Even if you don't realize it, just you know, when they are able to test people who have this exposure in their homes and don't, there is a difference in anxiety levels and stress, and it helps kids. It helps people who are recovering from illness just to have a plant. You know, that's one of the things we do. We give somebody some plants when they're ill. It's a pick-me-up. It's a sign of life around us. This is an agave. It's so gorgeous. It's got these beautiful burgundy tips on the top. You just want to hug it. This is very cute. Or maybe I just want to hug it, okay? This is a gorgeous leaf. This is actually an aloe hybrid. You probably haven't seen an aloe like this, and it's blooming. It's so lovely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's so cool. I really encourage you, you know, to, even if you don't become a rare plant collector, to at least expose yourself to this just for the fun of it. I mean, it's just fun to go look, and Petal and Pond is a great place to go. So this is a nice succulent plant, Hayworthia. There's a huge variety of those. This cute little jade bonsai style tree. African violets, like I said, one of the plants that gave me my start into house plants. The history anyway. And this, it's in like the grape ivy family. I have just a solid grape ivy. This is Narcissus family. It's got the burgundy stems and the burgundy leaves. And here we have this very tropical plant. So hopefully, you know, for those of you who are here, you can come up and take a look and feel the plants and take a picture, and by all means go over to Petal and Pond and purchase one when we're done. So, okay. You want me to?
Done?
Yeah, I'm done with those. Okay.
I'm thinning and then.
Okay. All right. And I appreciate everybody being so patient at home with our technology. Do I hit, okay, remove pin?
Well,
Yeah.
you talked about like cactus and succulent.
Mhm.
I thought they were kind of the same.
They're very similar. They are very similar. Like, for example, when you come up here, you'll see the succulents have a little bit more of a juicy leaf. I call it juicy, like a thick, fleshy leaf. The cacti tend to be more likely to have thorns. Succulents are often smaller. They're in the same, you know, the same family relatives, that in the fact that they like a lot of bright light, they like very little water. But they are different. So do we have the screen right?
Reshare, gotta reshare.
Where
Bottom green button.
okay. And then back to my,
Yep.
no, I was over here. Oops.
And then down at the bottom, share.
We good? Okay.
Yes.
Fun. Okay. That wasn't so bad. Okay. So what makes a plant rare or collectible? As I was telling you, variegation, just, having different colors, different fenestrations, different things, unusual shapes and colors, trends on social media. There are sometimes people will have a plant that's so common, but it explodes on social media, and then suddenly it's $100 or $200 plant. So it's like fashion trends in many ways, and it's a lot of fun to decorate your home with these. I can't say that enough. It just when nothing's happening outside, especially, you can have something going on inside with your plants. Still play in the dirt. So page down. Why is that not?
Click it once and then you should be able
Oh,
to.
okay. So where do I find these amazing plants? Lots of different sources. So I did mention that the plants that we have today came from Petal and Pond, formerly Randy's. Local plant nurseries such as them, Pike Nursery, I'm sure you're aware of. Big box stores like Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Target sometimes. Grocery stores. There are some specialty stores like Victorian Atlanta. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's in the Ponce shopping market. Is that what they call it? The Ponce Market? Very, very nice place. Online is good too. I know a lot of people are afraid to order a plant online because they think, oh, it's going to get messed up in shipping. They have come so far with how well they do with shipping plants online these days. I really have no qualms about it, especially as long as you're not ordering in the hottest part or the coldest part of the year. And even then they account for that by putting like little warmers or coolers in with the plant. So really you'll have a lot of, Etsy and eBay, you can find some cuttings and some maybe more expensive or hard to find items. And then I also want to highlight Gwinnett Technical College. There's having a fall plant sale October 15th to 17th, 9 to 4 p.m. They're here in Lawrenceville. The lady who runs that greenhouse, Gracie Walls, she knows more about houseplants than I could ever hope to learn. She's wonderful, propagates many of these rare collectible ones herself and sells them. So if you are looking for quality plants at a lower price, don't sleep on the technical colleges because they are a wonderful source.
Aldi is hitting this with plants too.
Yeah, a lot of stores are hit and miss. Sometimes you can find a rare gem at one of those places and you're like, oh, it looks really good. Other times you go and you think, does anybody water these? Like what's going on? So yeah, you really do have to kind of watch for that. So I had said if you have questions, you could put those in the chat box. People who are actually with me here in the group can raise their hand or whatever. People online can put it in the chat box and Lisa will let me know. I wanted to let you guys know that we are here in Lawrenceville. We're in the Annex building on the 4th floor in the same office with Fax and 4-H. This is our phone number. If you'd like to register for future Houseplant Academy sessions, you've got the QR code here. You can go online and find this and register. You could also email at the UGA extension email address. And you can also email me if you have questions about your houseplants or really anything horticulturally related. The nice thing about extension is if I don't know the answer, I have so many experts that I can call upon at UGA and just in my office. Lisa is a wonderful resource. Like she's my spirit animal for plant knowledge and everything else. So if I don't know, usually Lisa knows. Just ask Lisa. Okay.
Here's a few questions.
Okay.
So Thomas asked, any suggestions for self-watering planters? Oops.
Suggestions for self-watering planters. I've seen the ones, I want to say they're called Wick and Grow. I don't know if that's the brand. I've seen them like at Lowe's and Home Depot that have the little water reservoir. I think a lot of those are made kind of similarly. They're not my favorite, as I've said, just because I feel like I don't have as much control over the water. I like to get the leaves and the soil wet. But really, if you buy from a quality place and when you feel it, you don't want it to feel like it's going to bend easily. A lot of times, if you're purchasing a plastic pot, and most of those are plastic, you purchase a plastic pot, you don't want it to feel flimsy in your hands when you get it. You want it to feel like a piece, even though it's plastic, a piece of quality plastic that's going to hold up. You don't want it to just be, like it's going to break in one season. So no particular brand that I would say, just I'm picturing them in my mind, but you'll find those at big box stores.
Venus says, I find African violets work best from watering from the bottom.
A lot of people prefer to water African violets from the bottom. That is true. Just because I don't, I mean, that doesn't mean that that's the best way. A lot of people prefer that. I think because I have so many plants, I'm always concerned about having just even a little bit of water at the bottom because it might be a control issue. It might be just my own control issue. Okay. All right. Maybe it's a personal problem, but yeah, call a therapist for that one. But no, really, if you're watering from the bottom and you're having success, well, then why not? Why change? If you're watering from the bottom and you find that you're experiencing some sort of root rot, well, then maybe reconsider it. So it's up to you.
All right, next question. Diane asked, should I add orchid bark to my already planted fiddle leaf fig?
Not necessarily. It's something that's nice to have. It's nice to stabilize those roots, but if the plant is doing well and thriving, there's no reason to change. If when you do repot it, you might find that you like to incorporate that. If the plant's not doing great, or you don't find that, it's thriving, or maybe it just is due for a repotting, I would say use it. But you don't have to change your whole routine just because of a suggestion.
Thomas asks, any tips when bringing plants indoors after keeping them out during the summer?
Yes. Yes, I have lots to say about that. So when you bring your plants in, and it's more of a pain when you have them on a large scale, like I do. I don't even want to think about it. But but something that there are a few things you really should do. So if you're concerned about bringing pests in, which they do want to come in, you want to repot your plants. You can keep them in the same pot, but I recommend taking them out, giving them fresh soil that's not been outside, so that any bug or pest or anything that's been in there in the summer, you've disposed of that. You've got fresh soil that's come from the bag or wherever you got it. Clean your pots. Some people, not everybody does that, but if you really want to make sure that you're on the ball, you can clean your pot, hose it off, scrub it with some Dawn dish soap to really get it clean. If you've had a disease issue, by all means, use a little bleach in there. And then something that I always do when I repot, and I always give them a good shower spray with the hose. Never underestimate the power of your garden hose to eliminate a pest, really, because like if you see some little bugs on there, if you point that hose at an aphid, let me tell you, they go flying. It's it's a great feeling. And then you can also, preventatively, I like to use some sort of insecticide to pre-treat it before I even bring it in. So I give it a good spray, then I bring it in.
Okay. Anne would like to know what that most toxic plant was. Do
Oh,
you remember the name?
Yes, it was a Euphorbia pencil cactus, and I've seen them, they're in they're in a lot of succulent arrangements that you get from the big box stores. They're very cute looking. I've never seen one of my pets have an interest in it. I wouldn't, tempt it. But I can't imagine a child looking at that and wanting to eat it, but hey, don't ask me.
Right. I don't see any other questions, but
Okay.
if there are any other questions from the online participants, if you want to type those in now. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next portion, which is in-house here, part of
We
the
have a
workshop.
couple more questions, I think, before we close it out, or is that
Okay.
okay? Okay, go ahead. What was your question?
Is our Christmas cactus that when I bought it, they had a few blooms,
Mm-hmm,
and then after about a month, they fell off and it hasn't bloomed since.
mm-hmm.
And I've had it over a year.
A lot of times, so we have a person asking about their Christmas cactus that they bought, and it had some buds and blooms, and they fell off and they hasn't bloomed again. A lot of times they're very sensitive to changes in temperature. So a lot of times, like if you buy them at a store and then you bring them home, the sudden change in environment, they drop like crazy. They're very finicky in that way. You just want to make sure that you're getting it the right light and you're watering it and taking care of it, and give it some fertilizer as we're getting closer to the time of bloom, because it will like some food. It wants something to kind of boost it along, and that should help. But oftentimes the sudden change really messes up. We have another.
Two things, the Christmas cactus, put your finger just an inch in depth to the pot, and if it's wet, it doesn't need water. Christmas cactuses
What?
will hold water in
Okay.
their leaves, that's why they turn purple, pink, because they have too much water.
Okay.
And, you can put them outside now, because they do like to be out now, but you're gonna wanna bring them
Bring 'em
in,
in,
because they
yeah.
do like
Okay, so sorry for our online people. We just had some discussion amongst ourselves here. So we have another online question.
So what insecticide do you use when you bring plants inside?
So I'm often use a brand called Bonide, I believe, and you don't have to use the exact brand that I'm using. What you're looking for is something that's for houseplants that controls against, it's a general insecticide because I don't know what may be trying to hijack on my plants. So I get something, I like to get the ones like Bonide that say that they're safe for organic gardening. That doesn't mean you can ingest it, but it's safe for organic gardening. They're not as chemically dangerous. And I just give it a good dousing and I feel like I've done my best. And then also those cinnamon pine cones I talked about that repel the cats will also repel a lot of insects. They don't like it either. Huh. And make your house feel nice. Yes.
Yeah, I never.
Another question? Sure.
I had an ivy plant and it started growing mushrooms.
Really?
I've had that at my house too.
And I couldn't figure that, I couldn't figure out how,
Just the moisture, it's any damp spot. You think, where do these things come from, right? But they're in the soil, and if they get the right conditions, the right dampness in the dark, that will happen.
That's crazy.
Another question?
So we talked about the pothos plant and how sturdy they are, and I have several, but then we got something, it's a satin pothos. Are you
Oh,
familiar?
yes.
They're fussy.
They're fussier, yeah. Satin pothos and like the Syndapsis family, they are fussier. So we,
Just like, it seems like, does it need more humidity maybe, if the leaves are always?
Okay, so we had a person ask about the satin pothos and the Syndapsis family. Those are a fussier variety of pothos. When I'm talking about my 10 easiest in my list pothos, I'm talking about like just your more basic pothos, but the ones that have the satiny leaves, they like a lot of humidity, they like just the right moisture, they like just the right light. So they are fussier.
I took a cutting and put it in dirt with a Ziploc bag
Mhm.
over it, like a little terrarium.
Uh-huh.
Seems to be doing okay.
That's great, yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, okay, so I think it's about time for us to wrap up now. I appreciate everybody joining and please register for our future ones. For those of you online, thank you for joining us. We're going to switch over to our in-person people who can plant some cuttings. So please keep in mind, if you come in person, you get the benefit of taking home some plants. So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. Okay.
And then, exit. And waiting for all.